Let me all stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Nikki Martin.
Here.
Kathy Altensee.
Here.
Joy Sellers.
Here.
Nikki Bender.
Here.
Patrick Sellers.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
Accounted for. Okay. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes of the October 6th, 2014 Town Board regular meeting. I need a motion and a second.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 6th.
A second.
Who seconded
Motion by
it?
Sellers, second by Bender.
Question, under trustees report, it said you contacted Fitzmyers, they did not do a written report. However, I do believe that the city inspector did come back and review that.
Okay. I'll have to contact them and see if they got any type of written report, so I'll contact the city inspector. And ask for written report. I have that. All right. Anything else with the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of claims and demands and bills payable. I need a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion.
So moved.
Second.
By Bender, second by Sellers. The floor is open.
Question on video production, is that 1,390 for 3 meetings then?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Hi, Michael.
I might. We're doing a lot with Goodwill now. huh?
Where's that at?
It's right. It's on the first page, maybe.
Oh, okay.
See it?
This one under, excuse me, the assessor, the 881, that's for 1 month?
Correct.
There aren't very many bills this time, how come? Okay, we already paid the rent.
Question,
Yes.
for Greg Pelini Legal Services, what are we using him for now?
Well, I talked to him about MSE.
What's MSE?
Minimum shelter expense. Remember the question was raised by
Oh, yes.
us, a town member
Mhm.
about MSE, and he gave me a write-up of his determination and what he told me before, that is his opinion that we not use MSE.
Even though he wrote it.
And even though he wrote it, he said do not use it. So, I'll have that write-up for you guys. Are there any more questions on claims and demands?
I'm going to move your mic.
Excuse me. Okay. We're back. Any more questions on claims and demands? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Martin.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Altensee.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Next item on the agenda is resolution number 2014-R05, resolution to approve lease agreement for 524 West Stevenson Street, Township Office. Need a motion and a second in order to have discussion.
There's no motion and second made the last time.
That's right, because we tabled it. What
you got at the last meeting. You probably have it in your stuff because I passed it out the last meeting. I
Okay.
just made extra copies here. If you want, I'll give you another copy, but
That's 05.
everybody had it last meeting.
My numbers were the wrong ones at the last meeting. So I would like that.
Okay.
That's fine.
Pass that one.
That's mine, yeah.
Let me see.
This is, there you go.
All right.
This is 7. Okay, so we've already had a motion and a
Yep.
second the last time, so
Yep.
we tabled it. So now there's just discussion, is that correct? Mr.
Correct.
Phillips?
We
Okay.
postponed it.
Post.
Okay, and then we'll take a vote.
So what were the significant changes?
Well, you remember the version they gave us last time was for law office? He sent us the wrong form. What he did is, he sent us a new form based on parallel to what the assessors had for several years. Okay, 14 pages, and it's very similar, if not identical, to what the assessor's lease is.
That's this.
Right, is that the one you handed
No,
us?
the one I handed you was the lease agreement for the supervisors. You guys have already gotten the one for the assessor.
Yeah, this is the one that you're talking about,
Yes,
though.
the one that was handed out tonight. That was totally different than the one we had. You remember, like, the last month, they were saying it had to be paid, we had to pay all of the maintenance costs.
Maintenance, common
Which was,
space.
which is the common space, which wasn't correct. So he changed it and put it back to what we had previously agreed for the assessor. So, and there's a couple of changes that I have to talk to him about. We're still waiting for an answer from Torma. And I have to get him a copy, but it's going to basically be non-major changes. There's a statute that says we have to incorporate a non-discrimination clause, which wasn't in this one. And I put the non-discrimination clause in there verbatim now, okay? So I'm gonna talk to, get him to sign off on that, and we should be all set to go. Let me summarize it so the Attorney General is happy. There's a new AG opinion saying that if you don't summarize a contract before you vote on it, that the contract is invalid, and that's been the law for many years, according to the Attorney General's office. This is a 3-year lease. The rental for the supervisor's office, Suite 230 in the 524 West Stevenson Street building. This doesn't have annual extensions like the assessor says. This is straight 3 years. First year rent will be $1,600 a month. Second year rent will be $1,650 per month, plus the CPIU, whatever, the increase in the cost of living, basically. Consumer price index urban, the urban value. There's a lot of CPIs I found out the hard way a couple of years ago. And then the third year will be $1,700 a month, plus the CPI increase from the second year. So, and it's for 2,188 square feet. And it's on the second floor of the 524 West Stevenson Street building. And it also entails, we can use the parking areas, clients as well as our employees can use the parking areas. There's certain standard clauses in there about between a landlord and a tenant. And basically, there's a couple ones that we're waiting on for Torma right now. It says Torma has to give up all of its rights to sue as subrogee. If something would happen and we would have the right to sue, it says we can't sue, which is what the assessor's lease says. And it says our insurance company can't sue. Well, we have to get Torma to agree to that. Otherwise, we're going to need to make that change. So we're waiting for an answer back to Torma on that. And those are the without going through all 14 pages in detail, those are the basic, what we would call material provisions of the agreement. We have to maintain our own liability insurance for the demised premises. We're using the term demised, D-E-M-I-S-E-D. His version has demised premises, has leased premises. He mixes it all up. I'm going to change everything to demised, so we know what we're talking about. Basically, it's a standard. We can use his building. We can go in and out, and we're use of the common areas of the building. Basically, we can put in, if we need special fixtures inside the office, we can attach those, and we have to remove them when we leave. If we don't remove them, then he becomes the owner of it, although I have an issue with that on the Supreme Court ruling to the contrary. So those are basically, and this will just be, there's no extension possible. It's 1 3-year contract.
Okay, I did ask the question the last time on if we were within that 3 years to find something within that 3 years that, oh man, we want to go here. What is the?
There is no provision for early termination by us, as he wrote it. My phraseology is going to add something, but it was under, if they violate some part of the agreement or they're in violation of it, then we would have it. But we were never intending to buy out. We can change that if want to be, but that was never told to me. So there is no, okay, we're done with it after 2 years.
No, I'm saying if for some reason we do find a building that comes open and we want to move, do we? What is to get out of the?
We'd have to negotiate with them.
Okay.
There is no automatic right to leave.
Okay.
Michael, did you also say that there is no extending the contract after 3 years?
That's just there are no extensions.
So that would mean that at the end of 3 years, irregardless, you're out.
Well, unless we negotiate a new contract.
It would be a new
You can negotiate a whole new contract, a whole new lease agreement,
Okay.
but you wouldn't have the right, to, like the assessor did yearly, to say, oh, by the way, we're going to extend it another year.
Yeah.
And if we don't leave at the end of 3 years, we're on a month-to-month tenancy,
Oh, okay.
which is pretty standard
Yeah.
even for residential leasing.
Patrick,
Yes.
I did not approve of moving up there. However, it is all set in stone now, so I will support this lease tonight.
Any more discussion?
Well, I'm still uncomfortable with what the exact cost will be at the end of 3 years with the CPI and all of that. I still think we're sticking our necks out.
I did a spreadsheet, tried to give you an estimate, and assuming a 5% increase in the CPI, and it's been running between 1.7 and 3 the last several years, but it's going to a 5% increase each year. The total cost for 3 years would be $61,400, according to my spreadsheet. I was a math major, but I'm not a statistician.
Did you say how much it was?
61,400. That's why
61,000.
400 over 3 years.
That's a lot of money. I don't understand that. Can I, for clarification on my notes here, that includes the 3 years rent,
3 years of rent.
which is, okay, the 3 years of rent is how much? Without the CPU or whatever?
I don't know.
Okay.
On the
$1,600 a month.
plus 1650 at 12, plus 1700 to 12.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could do it right now.
Oh, it's not
I
necessary.
think I brought my phone. I have it in my phone.
Are we ready to vote?
I have one more comment. I'm going to vote no because I think it's the wrong way to go. I think we could have done better negotiating with BAC for additional space that was reasonable and bringing the assessor here at a lot less cost to the taxpayer than what this is going to cost us in the long run.
And then watching the back of the building fall off eventually. That sounds like.
Sorry, we haven't had a structural engineer look at it, so
Go look at that file cabinet. Should be
You know what?
tilted like this.
that's okay. I'm not going to argue with
Right.
anybody.
Yeah.
3 years of just rent is 58.8 without the CPI.
58,
8. 58,800.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay. Aldency,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Martin,
No.
Sellers.
Aye.
4 yes, 1 no.
All righty. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2014-R07, resolution to restrict a portion of the town reserve funds to pay rent for supervisor's office. Need a motion and a second in order to have discussion.
I make a motion that we, look at resolution,
2014-07.
yeah, 2014-07.
R07.
Yep, R07.
I second.
Motion by second by Officer. Okay,
Could you explain that to Sellers or Michael?
sure. In order to be in compliance with the law, we have to restrict funds for the duration of the entire contract. This is a multi-year contract. This came down because of York Township versus Diversified Computer Company, and it was stated that we have to have these funds restricted in order to suffice a multi-year contract.
Does that include the assessor?
No,
It's a
she's
year to year.
she's a year to year.
So it's only on a multi-year?
Yes.
That's correct. I don't remember when the city government, there's a specific state statute that says that for city governments, it can only be 1 year unless you escrow all the money to the side. They wiped out a collective bargaining agreement when it first started, because it was called for pay raises in year 2 and year 3, until they changed the law right after that, exempted collective bargaining agreements. But the appellate court for our part of the state, and the only opinion on it, which binding throughout the state, said that statute also applies to townships. Even though it's written for municipalities, it also applies to us.
So are we going to set a little bit more aside so that we don't
That's what I
have to
did.
guess?
Yes, what I did. I thought it would be a maximum of 61.2, I think it was 61.4, and I phrased it as 62,000. So we'd have more than enough to cover it, without going way overboard and restricting too much.
Any more questions on this? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay. Sellers,
Aye.
Martin,
No.
Altency,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Or 4-1, I'm
4 to
sorry,
1.
4-1.
Okay. Next on the agenda is supervisor's report. I'm going to hand out the expenditure of the budget report. There you go.
Oh, that what Mike just said he broke down, or?
No.
You guys, oh, okay.
It's the expenditure of the budget.
What's you got one?
I got one. Can I take a look?
What do we expend our contingency fund on?
change that.
It's on the first page there was budgeted at 4,000, and it's 100% expended.
Taxes, property tax.
Okay, so that's what's gonna come back once
That's, we're hoping it's gonna come back.
I don't know yet.
well, it could be illegal if it didn't, it's
They
just a
said
matter
that
of time.
Department of Revenue said it would be 100% refund.
Good.
Yeah.
Once the exemption's granted.
We,
Is the public privy to the information dispersed?
This is not the time for public comment. This
Is the
is,
public privy to the information dispersed?
no, not unless the board wants to make it.
I don't have a problem.
How far are we
It's
into?
public record.
We're 50%.
6 months.
Where is that document from?
Okay, thank you.
Why is risk management so high? Is that a one-shot thing so that once we spend our 22, we don't pay anymore?
Where's Mass Torma, right?
Right, we normally have a premium that we pay in one payment.
Okay. So that 18,909 is our one payment to them.
As far as I know, I didn't make it, so I haven't seen it. Liz is not here, she will be able to answer that.
We're doing good in maintenance and equipment. In training and conferences, we're not doing anything.
What's the job search that we've spent 93% of?
That's for, no. University of Illinois Extension, yes, thank you.
It's what?
University of Illinois Extension,
Oh, home extension.
yeah. Trying to think of it, thank you. That's all from me. So next on the agenda is the assessors report.
Nothing necessarily to report. We've had 4 appeals, 1 commercial and 3 residential. That's it so far. Last day again is October 30th to file with board review.
That's good.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the trustees report.
I just had a comment on, or I just want to make a comment on, I guess last week when it was mentioned of township, attacking the VA and not supporting them and wanting to get out of this building and, all these accusations, coming at us like, we are, trying to do something wrong, or we're trying to cause a problem. And I think that this board is trying to fix a problem that was there when we came in. And I really think it's sad to think that we would try to hurt our veterans in any kind of way, or hurt our taxpayers in any kind of way. That's what I was voted in to do, was to try to make the best for taxpayers. And I don't know how I got into the veterans thing. Why would I do that? I mean, why would we do that? It makes no sense to me. And it really bothered me when I left to think that you know, that you would make these accusations that we were attacking veterans. No, we are getting out of this building because we had information that told us the building was not safe, the building was not, we can't afford it. So that's why we're getting out of the building. We're not getting out of this building to cause all kinds of problems and all that. No, we're getting out of the building because it's not safe and the building is costing taxpayers way too much money. And that's what I wanted to say. So I don't think that, I like that said about me. I don't know what anybody else, but I don't like it said to me to make me feel like I'm doing something against our veterans or our taxpayers, because that's not what I'm here, because I'm also a taxpayer, you know, so I'm trying to make it better for my taxes too. And so that's what I wanted to say. So that's why we're getting out. It's not because we're trying to cause a problem. It's because we're trying to do what's right. And that's what I wanted to say.
I had something to say. I also felt very uncomfortable when I left last meeting. We were voted in as a board, as a team that's supposed to work together. And to have someone criticize Mr. Sellers and insubordination at its finest on our board, it just really hurt my feelings, because I was here before you were here, and I knew what was going on, and I knew how it was run, and I am very thankful that you've made the changes by leaps and bounds, and I would never say anything like that to you, ever. It just blew me away, and I hope we can work together as a team. We all have our differences, we all have different opinions, that's what we're allowed to have, but let's not creep up on each other and cause friction and bad feelings. We're here to do a job, we're not here to cut people down.
Okay.
Yes.
I also was very unhappy after the last meeting. And for anybody to say that I specifically do not support veterans, all of you people out there know that's not true. I have worked very, very hard in past years helping veterans, and I will continue to do it, no matter what the VAC or the township does. It has nothing to do with my feelings for veterans. And I don't think anybody should be accused of saying we're doing this against veterans, because I don't think there's anybody on this board who is against any veteran in this city or any place else. So I want the veterans out there to know that anytime I can help them, I am here. And I'm sure the rest of the board is too.
Yes.
I still have some concerns about the structural integrity of the building and whether or not a structural engineer actually looked at the building. Did a structural engineer ever look at the building?
No, do you want him to look at one? Do you want him to look at it? We can have one.
To me, if we're going to rush to judgment about the integrity of this building, then we should have the appropriate evaluators tell us whether or not it's a $60,000 or $80,000 job. I can tell somebody to come and I want this and this and this done to my house. However, if you've got a structural problem, you would want a structural engineer before you would start talking to a construction person about changing things. And to me, that's very important. It would be like having a plumber come in and tell us what we needed to do with our electricity. So for us to say that it's going to cost this to correct that problem, to me, is suspect. I think that you need a structural engineer. That's just my opinion. I would do it at my house. I would expect the taxpayers would want that done also.
Okay, well, if it's left to the board, you guys want a structural engineer to come in, we pay for it?
I don't think we should pay for it.
It's Good board.
How much does a structural engineer?
I can find out.
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry, didn't mean to.
No,
I
I'm
can
just
definitely
saying, how
find
much
out.
do they cost, and
I can
would
find
that
out.
be on us? No, I don't think so.
Yes, it would.
If we're going
Right.
to, if we're going to sell the building, we may have to
We
get a
didn't
structural
put a for
engineer.
sale sign up front.
Well, what are
We
you gonna,
didn't, we didn't do it. We didn't.
what are
township.
you gonna do with the building if you move out?
Hey,
We, okay. Well, so I'll.
So
call the
I
structural
am
engineer.
concerned about that. I think it's just reasonable to do that.
Okay. Then after that, do I call Winters and Construction back in again?
I don't know. You know,
Well,
I would
there's-
suspect that if you're gonna stay here, you would.
I mean.
But if you want somebody else to do it, then maybe somebody else is gonna have to get an assessment. Because nobody's gonna take your assessment anyway, if you're out of here.
That's true, I mean, but you had the suggestion about structural engineer, should we call Winters and Construction back in as well after we get the structural engineer? And have
That's
him
not,
give
that's
us
not my
another-
call. It's not my call. If we're staying in this building, I would say, yes, we should do that. But if we're not staying in this
But if-
building, why would we do it?
But if we're trying to sell it, shouldn't we?
Isn't that up to the seller?
Huh?
I'm not gonna debate you, Mr. Sellers. I've said what I'm gonna say,
I didn't
and I
think so.
don't wanna
Okay.
debate.
Okay, all right. Any more comments?
Yes.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Where could I get information on complying with our ordinances? Is that in our township handbook, or is that part of a state statute?
Okay, what do you mean by complying with our ordinance?
In other words, if we have an ordinance that says this is how we're gonna do something, is that, are we obligated then, if it's an ordinance, until we change it to do that?
I'm not sure, because there have been contrary appellate court decisions. There have been some appellate court decisions, not just for townships, but for government, local government, and that says you're not required to comply with what your ordinance says, such as, kind of like the old issue about the employee handbook. And usually you have to comply with the ordinance if somebody relies upon it to their detriment, and they relied upon it to their detriment in a reasonable manner. Now, I mean, there was a big case out of Kane County, Mickey, and it was like 15, 20 years ago. And Kane County didn't follow its ordinances, and the appellate court said, so what? You don't have to, but nobody there lost money or lost property. There was nothing that involved. On the other hand, you had situations where people relied on what the city of Elk Grove did on a building permit. And they did lose $100,000. And so they had to comply with their ordinances. See, it's not an easy.
Well, if it would cost us money, would that be a valid reason to comply with an ordinance?
I don't know, it depends. Usually the rule is if our action led somebody to lose something and they were reasonable in relying on what we said and what our ordinance said. I wish I could tell you it was real simple, black and white test, it's not.
The law sounds pretty gobbledygook to me.
It is. That's a good description.
Okay, well, I'm still concerned about, not the employee's handbook, but I'm concerned about all of the things that we put together regarding our pay scale. And we had one. I know we had one. I have been through 3 boxes. I have 2 more to go through. But I know we had an ordinance regarding a pay scale.
I haven't seen it. I'm not saying we don't have it. I'm just saying I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I know the clerk's in the process of indexing. I asked her to index all the ordinances.
Well, I am still looking, and I've been through 3 years. I have 2 more to go. And I'm hoping that I find it, because I know that we had some kind of an ordinance regarding a pay scale. Because we did longevity. I mean, how could we determine longevity? How could we determine raises if we didn't have a pay scale that we were following? Do we do it willy-nilly? Does it come to the board? Does the supervisor have a free hand?
I wasn't here then, so I don't know what.
Supervisor
Yes.
Sellers, comments. Great comments, Trustee Martin, except when you go back, and I think Nikki, Trustee Bender will concur, there were individuals that received labor grades and changes without any input from you as trustees. In fact, one of them received a 9% increase in, which included a labor grade, covering for someone who had left. And the paperwork, if I'm not mistaken, says that person should have returned to their original salary, which was never done. Another person received a 9.5% increase in 1 year. Another one, 9.5.
Excuse me, what did that include?
No documentation. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Both of these employees, no documentation. Another one had a grade level increase to 9.5. That began, it was effective June of 2012. Longevity was one thing. That was put into place, Trustee Martin, and I think we all understand that. That was a 1% per year. So at the end of 3 years, each employee would get a 3%. You're asking for labor grade changes. These
No, I'm not
persons-
asking for changes. All I'm asking.
You're asking for the documentation in the ordinance. It was never followed. It was never followed.
Well,
Or at
then
will
I
was
think
filed.
we have to find it and we have to do an investigation about what
From,
happened.
for the past. What's happening today is they're being paid what they should be paid. This, I can't say what I'd like to say. This was just totally inappropriate on
Okay,
how it
that's
was
20,
handled.
that was 2012.
You're talking 2007, changed in 9, changed in 10, doubled in 12. One employee in 2012 went 9.5%, another one 9.5. And I'm here to tell you, none of these employees were in my office. None were in my office.
Well, I think
So
that
this
has
was
to be,
handled-
I think that has to be looked into, Cindy, because you've got documents that the rest of us don't have. And I think that.
Well,
Well, I
it's
wouldn't have them
un-
because I wasn't here.
You weren't here. You were here, Nikki was here. And
I
it
was
all
here
went,
for part of
it
the
all
time.
went for deaf ears.
Well,
The changes that were implemented were handled without approval.
Right,
okay. Well, without approval by,
the board.
The board.
okay.
That's how
What
it's
about
supposed to be
the
done.
salaries now? Do we approve them or don't approve them?
No, I do not believe, as again, in 2012, when we went, the last year, that the board handled the increases and changes in salaries was handled the way it initially was, which is what you're looking for, which showed.
Have you got that document?
What the hourly would have been, what the part-time would have been, whose initials went to the salary, what labor grade they were.
Okay, do you have that?
When in fact, in 2012.
Could I
it
get
was-
a copy of what you have?
It was a one-page change, 25-cent cost of living. And I believe I asked the attorney at that time, do we not get what we typically do, which shows the breakdown of who was making what? His response was, no, that's not necessary. Salaries are designated by the supervisor and the assessor.
Okay, could I have a copy of
I
what you
believe you
have?
can get it. Just write down the ordinance, Mickey. It's ordinance T 2011-05, and it failed to pass.
Well, I don't know what you're looking at.
Ordinances.
And I'd like to see those. That's all in that one ordinance from 2000?
That was what they typically were. Then in 2012, they changed. All you had to say was that there was going to be a 25-cent per hour cost of living increase. No indication of grades, no indication of who got what.
Can I ask a question?
Nothing.
So there's no ordinance for that change? Is that what you're saying in 2012? There was no ordinance for
No,
those
there was an
changes?
ordinance that said there is a 25-cent per hour, totally different than what we used to have to do.
Is that the ordinance that's 2011-05? That's a 20?
2012-4. That's the
Okay.
25-cent per hour.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
In the past, the board has always approved labor
Yes.
grade changes,
Yes.
job description changes,
Yes.
and this was all done hush-hush, and it bordered on favoritism, and who's gonna be here and who's not gonna be here. So,
Well, I'd like to see what you have here.
I just
because-
gave you the ordinance numbers, Mickey.
well,
I will look at
but-
them and give you copies of them if you
Okay,
don't have them.
Well, I
okay?
don't, and I'm still looking, and please check to see what she has, because I can see some things over there that maybe not be in the ordinance.
In your in
Why would
Cindy's
you
documents?
Well,
Let
I
me
don't
get
know.
clarification.
I don't know.
Are you saying that what Cindy's got is not in the ordinance? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know. I can't, she won't show it to me, so I don't know.
It's the ordinance, Mickey, that you get every year. You had it every year. The only problem is.
Why do you have a problem showing it
Is
to
that
me?
it didn't match salaries. That was the thing that disturbed me, and it should have disturbed you, because I know it disturbed
Well, I
Trustee
know
Bender.
that we corrected some things for you, for Maida.
That again was an erroneous error on the part of the
That was
CFO.
different.
So, again, not in my office.
Well, it was in your office that you had an issue with not getting,
That's correct. The
Maida.
CFO did not pay the salary that the.
Called for.
Board.
Correct.
yeah, but the board didn't make a decision on that, as I recall. It didn't
Yes,
come
they
before
did.
us.
Yes,
Yes,
it
we
did.
did.
Most definitely
Yes,
it
we
did.
did. We approved
You
it.
approved it.
That's true. I was
Approved
there.
it.
Okay, I need to see all of that, because
get all
I've
that
been looking to
information.
find it, and I think it's important that we have that. That we understand, the progression.
Is there anything else under trustee?
Yeah, there's one
Okay.
more. What's happening with our township site? I went in and there's nothing. There's
Nothing
no
further.
video, there's no agendas, there's no,
Wow.
Yes, it is.
I couldn't find them.
I just went on
You go to
yesterday
my
and it
site or to
said,
Patrick's.
Patrick's.
It's all there.
Okay, give me, now, I pulled it up and it said what it said, and I went in and I couldn't find it, so
www.freeporttownship.org.
www.freeport,
Freeport Township.
is
All
that
spelled
all
out?
together?
Yep.
what is it, www.
.freeporttownship.org.
Just Freeport Township.
Okay, well, that's what I went into, and what it showed me was next to nothing. And
Really?
it said under construction, so I didn't know.
It's gonna always be under construction. Always.
Oh, it's always gonna say
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's gonna always say that. There's
Okay.
always
Because
things
it
being added.
changes from
Yep.
meeting to meeting.
Who's the responsible person that does the website for Township?
Far as what?
The
Doing
responsible
the-
person that actually enters the data and does the stuff?
I'll enter it, some. Barb entered some before as well. So there's,
It's like 2 or 3 administrators,
Mhm.
isn't there?
So it's mostly the elected officials that are doing the site? And where do you get your information? From the video, from your documents? I mean,
what information are you talking about?
whatever's on the website.
All the minutes and all the minutes that are put on, that's what
That's what you do?
after it's approved,
Okay,
then it goes on the website.
okay,
So that's what my part is.
okay.
And as far as our programs, those are my programs, so I got them on there as well.
And who puts the video on? You do?
I do,
And you get that from
from our video consultant.
from our video people?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll go back on and try again, but
Okay.
I even called somebody to come and help me, and they couldn't find it either.
What were
So
you
I'll
looking
try
for?
again. I
Exactly.
was just trying to find our site, and all I could find was the CEO, the fiscal officer, and one other thing, and that was it. That was all
Oh,
that
is it
came
across
up.
the top? Did you look across the top, the home and
Yes,
about us and all that good stuff?
We did,
Okay, well, all that's in there.
but it didn't come up for me. Okay, I will go back and check that again.
Yes, please do, because if there's a problem, maybe there's something on our end we need to adjust.
Okay, I will check again.
Okay,
Bless you.
all righty. Next on the agenda is public comments. Please, just state your name.
Please go up to the chair in the front, please.
You Eisenhower Senior. Let's just remember, this is a friendly lawsuit. Mr. Sellers, after having read your last 3 scathing newspaper articles, you have finally shown your true colors. The VAC purposely did not refute any of your articles up till now, but your last 2 scathing articles incensed the veterans in our community. The buck stops here, Mr. Sellers. All of the half-truths, the smoke and mirrors, and telling taxpayers what you wanted them to hear, but not telling them the truth has shown your unprofessionalism at its finest. You stated that this pending friendly lawsuit was not a political retribution, but we all know that it is. It's a political witch hunt regarding the former supervisor and her board. It's a frivolous and unwarranted lawsuit at the taxpayers' expense. But you haven't informed the taxpayers that you and your board have squandered $93,000 plus this fiscal year 2014 on this friendly lawsuit. You stated that you hold no animosity towards the VAC and the veterans, but we all know that is not true. Veterans and taxpayers have called me and talked with me in public, and they have heard that the VAC is to blame and that we are the enemy. Since your first day in office, you rode into this building like Sherman taking Richmond and totally disregarded our intergovernmental agreements with your cavalier condescending attitude directed by our current board, township, assessor, and your council. It's pretty convenient for you to separate yourself from the agreements and then purposely invoke the ones you choose to use against the VAC. You can't have it both ways. Your cavalier attitude concerning the building in your articles was your attempt to justify to the taxpayers your necessity to move because you could not afford the general expenses in the building that is already paid for. But when you pay your rent and the assessor's rent at 524 Stevenson Street together, within 6 years you will have spent the cost of your half of this building. Thank you for your disdain for this building to the public with 2012 building data that was purposely and conveniently distorted. All the items that you quoted were taken care of. There is no mold, no leaking building, no cracks in the floor. We just have a floor pour height misalignment in 2007 when the building was installed onto the building for renewal. I hope that you and your board are satisfied that you have opened up this can of worms with this frivolous lawsuit, spending my tax dollars on this political retribution witch hunt, and purposely and publicly degrading a perfectly sound building that will be here after we are all gone. By your misguided newspaper articles, you have jeopardized the sale of this building. And I did inspection for the city, and I inspected this building. There's nothing wrong with this building. And you'll have to spend $80,000 to $100,000 to have a structural engineer to come in here for a building we're going to sell. Thank you.
Public comments. Please state your name.
Marta Mishevitz, Veterans Assistance Commission of Stevenson County. I do not understand why you are leaving this building, why you are leasing facilities for 3 years and then possibly finding another place after that, when you've got something here that is perfectly fine. I reiterate from the last meeting, there have been no conversations with the VAC of Stevenson County about building issues such as the mold, such as the space for the assessor. The building is not going to fall apart. The building is not going to fall off into some never land. The building is safe. Again, there's not been collaboration, no consultation. If Supervisor Sellers supported the veterans the way he says he does, why didn't he come to the VAC to discuss the building? I'm sure that each one of you individually supports veterans, but collectively, what you're doing here is just so wrong the way you did it. And you guys individually are going to have to deal with that. And you're going to have to deal with it collaboratively or collectively. You just didn't give us a chance to work together. I was just waiting for my contact Supervisor Sellers.
I will make sure I write down what you were saying. Any more public comments?
No.
Please state your name.
My name is Sheila Hooper, 423 West Ringo Street, former Freeport Township Supervisor. Thank you for allowing us to speak at your meeting. I have a couple concerns, and one of my concerns is that it's not just an implication. It's so close to a libelous statement that my attorney is still trying to determine if it is. and that is the lack of ethical behavior and due process that the township supervisor, the town board, the Veterans Assistance Commissioner, Supervisor, and the Veterans Assistance Board took in their work and their search, and the more than 2.5 years that were spent seeking and developing this building. The comments, as I say, are, I don't know, they're very, very close to public condemnation, and I feel pretty bad about that because no one on the board, neither myself nor Marna nor her board, ever intended to do anything but the best we could for the taxpayers in the circumstances we were in. We had 3 forced moves, very costly. Everybody knew that City Hall was going down the tube, and they gave us a little, we had another short stay in another building and then another short stay in a little piece of the courthouse. And there were other rentals that had short stays, and we spent many hours, much time, many expert consultants and construction and engineering people, and I think that the building is sound, the building is good, the building's in good shape. The effort, the things that were mentioned were healed, corrected, remedied before we signed our purchase deeds. And so I just wanted to bring that out because I want the best for the people of the township. I want the best for the taxpayers of the township. Most particularly, I want the best for the clients that the township supervisor's office serves and the people that the assessor's office serves in providing fair and equitable assessments. And so I felt I had to make those remarks about the work that we did do at this building.
Any more public comments? All right. The next item on the agenda is executive session to discuss A, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired as authorized by 5 ILCS 120/2 C5, and B, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal as authorized by 5 ILCS 120/2 C11. I also would like a motion to allow the town assessor and the town attorney into this executive session.
So moved.
Second by Sally. Madam Clerk, yes, please call the roll.
Altensee. Aye. Bender.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Thank you.
We're going to executive session. It is now, what time do you have, Mark?
6:23.
6:23. All righty. We are now out of executive session. It is what time?
6:58.
6:58. There was
No motions made during executive session. The motion to come out of executive session was made by,
Bender and seconded by Sellers.
and passed by roll call vote of 5-0.
all righty. So the next item on the agenda
Right.
is Resolution 2014 R08 to approve settlement agreement with. Can I mention?
Sure, absolutely.
David Fonda and Kent Bank in 2013 MR 53. I need a motion and a second.
I move for approval.
A second.
By Bender, second by Sellers.
Now, let me summarize this agreement.
Okay.
Keep the Attorney General happy.
Okay.
This is an agreement. There's a pending lawsuit, as you know, Town of Freeport versus Mr. Fonda, Kent Bank, and the Veterans Assistance Commission. We have a First Amendment complaint pending against each of those 3 defendants, and there is a counterclaim by Mr. Fonda against the town for the cost involved that he relied upon the town's information to enter into the sale agreement. The settlement agreement provides that the town will dismiss its complaint against only Vonda and the Kent Bank, and will issue a general release of any and all claims we might have against those two entities. And the Veterans Assistance Commission will have to approve this document. Also, they will dismiss, they will issue a general release of any claims they have against Mr. Fonda and the Kent Bank. And Mr. Fonda will dismiss with prejudice his counterclaim against the town, and he would in effect release any and all claims he has against the town. And that's the term, and nobody admits that anybody violated any of the rules. The litigation would continue between the Veterans Assistance Commission and the town of Freeport, seeking a ruling as to whether the original purchase of this building by the two entities together was invalid or in compliance with Illinois law, as well as a question as to the validity of the intergovernmental agreement to operate the building. That's count 3 of the litigation. That would continue. Count 1 and count 2 are based on failure to seek the approval of the electors of the town at the annual town meeting, and the fact that the statute says that a town can own a building as co-owner with a municipality, and the VAC is not a municipality as used in that statute. The matter is pending court hearing on Wednesday, the 22nd, for status.
Any questions? Nothing?
And can I get clarification, please?
Sure.
On what you just said, Mr. Phillips? This is just our portion of it. This says we still have to, in order for this to be resolved, the VAC-SC has to agree to the settlement too.
That's correct. Mr. Fonda will not drop his counterclaim if he's still subject to a lawsuit by claims by the VAC.
Question. So if they don't approve this in a timely manner, will the 22nd then be continued?
We will be in court on the 22nd. The judge will ask us what's going on, where we're
Okay.
going with the lawsuit, what's going to happen next. And we would have, and once we know more what the VAC is, I have not heard from them as to what their position is. It's my understanding, based on the correspondence I received from Mr. Fishman, the attorney for Mr. Fonda, that apparently they're in agreement with it, but I have not had that confirmed by their representatives yet.
Okay. Second question.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did we put on here to approve the settlement agreement when we went into executive session to make that decision?
Because you have to have on the agenda any item of final action taken. And by dismissing them, these two defendants from the lawsuit, and issuing a release of our claims against them, that would be a final action. And it has to be specifically listed on the agenda pursuant to the 5th District Appellate Court's decision in Rice versus Adams County Board.
So what's the difference between having the resolution say we approve or the resolution saying we disapprove? What's the difference? I mean, why was it say to approve when we had the discussion that maybe we weren't going to approve?
Yeah, you could have voted again. You could have made a motion to reject or to deny the settlement agreement, or to deny the resolution. I mean, just because this is to inform, the wording was on there to inform the public what we're going to talk about, so that if they wanted to be present at this meeting today, they could have sat here and watched.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's the 5th District Appellate Court, I do not speak for them.
Laws are laws.
Right. So, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Altensee.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Motion.
5-0.
5-0.
I move for adjournment.
Second.
Till November 3rd. It should be, it should say till November 3rd.
Okay, motion by Bender, second by Sellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.